afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What is going on? It's Saturday. I've had a lot of caffeine. Can you tell? No, I'm just kidding. But,
I can tell right away. Yeah.
You don't. You do? You don't. Questions? I should buy a boat. No, Corky Romano. Great movie. But no, I'm kidding. What's going on, everybody? Saturday afternoon. Nice little Saturday afternoon here in New Jersey. I'm sure you're like 5 hours northeast of me. So it's probably just a little bit colder of what our weather is here. I like these days where you get all four seasons in the same day, but pretty soon we're going to be dodging some snowflakes. Hopefully not. But what's going on, Cliffy?
Not a whole lot. Yeah. It's cold and rainy here today, so not quite that nice. First big Saturday slate of the season. Obviously, there's one game last Saturday, but this is the first big slate. We have 12 games on the docket here tonight. Boston and Los Angeles are playing right now. I think it was 0-0 after the first period. But there's a lot of injury and lineup news to go through tonight because there's key guys out, key guys coming back. Basically across the board, like there's only a couple games where not much has really changed for the lineup. So a lot to get to, a lot to break down. Hopefully things go better than they did yesterday. I mean, I think we had a pretty good read on the slate. Winnipeg Jets flow chart until Scheifele went completely nuclear extremely late in the game. Avoided Vancouver. Two pretty good. When you can avoid two of those four minefields, things work out. But Nikita Kucherov, third period, natural hat trick, and Vegas went absolutely bananas again. You had them or you didn't.
That Kucherov thing, it just annoys me because they did diddly squat 5-on-5 against the Stahl line. Absolutely nothing. He scored 2 power play goals. Kucherov had 2 empty net goals. So, sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles and the good lines get there. It kind of felt like that was like Winnipeg won a few years ago on the empty net. They never missed it. So that's just how it goes on a short slate. It heightens the pain. But unless you had them, then congrats to you guys. But, yeah, this is a 12-gamer. This is the first really big slate that we've had. There is one really chalky spot that we will obviously get to. I don't want to say I love slates like that, but I like it from the standpoint that if you fade and they go off, you could just go to bed. There are 2 really, really big favorites. One of them has high ownership. One of them doesn't. There are the Leafs, the Rangers. There's a lot of firepower in the slate. I like this slate. Let's get into it. But before we do, as always, thank you guys so much for the support over the past week. You guys have been signing up like madmen and madwomen. If you missed the deal for 5 days for $1, you can click the link in the chat below. Just shoot me a DM when you're checking out. I can get you a code for 15% off your first week or your first month. Just let me know, and we'll get you set up. You can hop in the Discord. You get top stacks. You get projections, ownership projections, all that fun stuff that we mentioned throughout the show. Obviously, the shows are always free, and we try to mention the tools as much as possible. But if you want access to them 24/7, sign up through the link below. I do need those feet picks. I still haven't gotten any. I'm disappointed in all of you.
My DMs are locked, so
yeah. He barely answers mine because I just flood him with absolute garbage because that's who I am. I'm just garbage. Let's get into this slate. A lot of news right out of the hop in this first game. Florida Panthers with a 3.1 total heading into Buffalo. The Sabres have a 2.8 total. Barkov avoided a broken ankle. It looks like it's just a sprain, not even a high ankle sprain, just a regular sprain. They said 2 to 3 weeks he should be back for I think they're going to Finland for a European trip. Matty Tkachuk is out tonight. He has an illness. JJ Peterka is still out with a concussion for Buffalo. Looks like Zach Benson is moving up to the top line there. Looks like Owen Power is going to slide into his power play spot. The biggest news, obviously, is Barkov. I don't think – well, I do think all the time you guys should try it, but the biggest loss Barkov is going to cause is at 5-on-5, it's going to hurt them defensively, but not tremendously like you would think. Like Lundell is pretty good. Luosterainen's good. I think their top six is still going to be pretty good. The issue is going to be offensively and specifically on the power play. We've talked about it last year too when Barkov's out. If the Florida power play loses the faceoff and it clears the zone, I'm not exactly sure who's going to enter the zone with the puck. Barkov was that guy. Like his zone entries on the power play is why that power play is so good. So it does hurt them offensively in that sense. Will they still be fine against Buffalo? Top six, very cheap. Sure, like they'll be fine, but it kind of really knocks me down a peg in terms of me wanting to play them. They still have a 3.1 road total. Lundell is super cheap. Luosterainen is cheap. He's with Reinhart. The second line is Verhaeghe, Bennett, and Erod. So like they still have nice firepower there. But when your best guy goes out, everyone else has to take a step up, and sometimes that can be a bit tough on people. So, like, yeah, I'm okay with Florida, the Lundell, Luosterainen, and Reinhart line at 14-8. They're fine for a filler for me. Bennett, Verhaeghe, they have good numbers together over the span of a few seasons, but the majority of that is with Tkachuk. I don't think Erod is going to hurt them, but they're not going to be as good as they would be with Tkachuk. So, like, yeah, if I'm making 20 lineups, yeah, I'd consider both of the Florida top six. But in my single entry, there are so many excellent spots here tonight that I don't think I'm going to get there. On the Buffalo side, like Barkov is probably the best two-way center in the NHL. You know what I mean? It is going to hurt them defensively. But like Lundell, Luosterainen, and Reinhart, still going to be a good line. Bennett, Verhaeghe, Erod, there'll probably be a little bit of a trading chance or deal. I like Buffalo one here. The issue is the power play units. It's just a mess. You know, Florida still has a really good power play. They just do take a lot of penalties. This game is more MME for me. If you want to play them in 3 max, be my guest. I just like other spots better.
Yeah, I'm not going to go super long here. The Barkov and Tkachuk injuries don't make me like Buffalo more. They just make me like Florida less. That's kind of the simplest way. Yeah, that's kind of the simplest way that I can put it is, you know, obviously there's reasonable prices. Like, you know, the Lundell, Luosterainen, and Reinhart line is now 14.8 thousand. I assume Lundell and Reinhart are both going to be on the top power play unit. So, like, you know, there are some reasons to play them, I guess. But, you know, Lundell is pretty good defensively. He's not as good as Barkov, but he's still good defensively. That line's going to be good defensively. It's just that Barkov is so much better offensively, if both at 5-on-5 and on the power play than Lundell is. And it's kind of the same thing with Tkachuk. It's like he's fine defensively, but it's his offense that really separates him from basically everybody else on the team. So I don't have a lot of interest in Florida, really. Buffalo side, like, I'm going to be honest, I really don't have a lot of interest in stacking them. If this was like 4, 5, 6 games, I think that'd be one thing, but there are 12 games on this slate and they're still splitting the power play units, right? You have Dahlin and Owen Power on the blue line. And then you have Tage Thompson, Dylan Cousins, Jason Zucker across 3 even strength lines, each on the power play. Like, you want to one-off Thompson because he's going to shoot. You want to one-off Cousins. You know, he's been shooting quite a bit to start this season. Eventually, those pucks do have to go in. Cousins is only 4,500 on DK. I think that's fine, like things like that. But there's really nothing that I want to stack in this game for single entry, 3 max, that type of thing. Given that we have 24 teams on this slate, I just think that there are other spots that I'd rather go to.
Yeah, and we talk about defensemen at the end, but I think like if you're going to play Buffalo, it's a one-off Rasmus Dahlin, one-off Owen Power, something like that. But you know, Pittsburgh Penguins with a 2.8 total heading into Toronto. The Leafs have a 3.7. Johnny Tavares out tonight. I don't know if that's confirmed, but he is sick. He missed morning skate.
Yeah, they said officially it's game time decision.
So if he's out, it's going to be Pontus Holmberg up on the second line. If Tavares is out, Max Pacioretty will take the power play 1 spot. That's kind of important. I know the Leafs, the top line hasn't really done much from a DFS perspective the first 2 games, but if you look at their stats, their underlying stats, they ran Montreal over. They ran New Jersey over. Like, it's coming. It is coming. And Pittsburgh sucks. Is it coming tonight? It's certainly possible. Tristan Jarry is so bad he's not even starting again. It's Joel Blomqvist. He may actually even just be a better goalie than Tristan Jarry at this point. Tristan Jarry will have his good games, don't get me wrong. But, we'll see. They're giving the kid a shot. I do really like Toronto 1 here. They're still under 20K. They're coming in under double digits. They have positive leverage. Yeah, Rust is back. Woohoo! Crosby, Rust, Beauvillier. Beauvillier has never been good on the defensive end his whole career. So, and when Crosby and Rust were together last year with Jake Gensel, they were trading chances at best. So last year when it was like Rust, Crosby, Raquel, then it got a little bit better defensively, but Crosby and Rust, they trade chances. You add in Beauvillier to the mix. It's pretty ugly. So I'm very much in on Toronto 1 here. I think a Pacioretty one-off if Tavares is out is fine. A one-off Nylander is fine. I think if I was going to stack Toronto 2, I would want Tavares in. That doesn't really interest me too much. This is a Toronto 1 game for me and Pacioretty. On the Pittsburgh side, I just am not super interested. I know Toronto's not that great defensively. They struggle on the penalty kill. Pittsburgh's power play is just atrocious. So, if you want to get to them some in MME, fine. But on this big slate, I think it's more of a one-off type deal, one-off Beauvillier since he's cheaper, a one-off Bunting, one-off Raquel, something like that. But I'm not thrilled about the Pittsburgh side here. Yeah.
On the Toronto side, even if Tavares is in, I think I would still only have interest in the Toronto top line because you're right. They don't have a point yet in the 2 games, but they have 22 shots on goal in those 2 games. If they keep that pace up, that line would have 900. Those 3 guys would have 900 shots this season, literally. It's crazy that they haven't scored yet. It's going to come eventually, and Toronto is rated pretty highly. Top 2 stacks has them at 14%. Top 2 stack under 10% ownership. They're cheaper than They're cheaper than even Colorado with the $2,500 player on the top line. They're cheaper than obviously Edmonton, New Jersey, places like that. They can allow you to put in a decent secondary stack. I'm not worried about any matchup on the Penguins. That second line has just been getting run over to start this season. And we mentioned on the last show, Crosby's still very, very good offensively, but he's not quite the player he was defensively that he was. In fact, I was looking at him and Brian Rust numbers while I was getting ready for this. When they're on the ice without Jake Gensel, Gensel missed time last year for injury and then he was traded. When they're on the ice without Jake Gensel, they're below average by high danger chances allowed, which means the Matthews line is going to be matched up against a below average defensive line with a rookie in net. Yeah, I do like Toronto 1. They are one of my favorite. They're one of my 5 favorite top lines here on this slate. There are 24 of them. I really do like Toronto 1. Don't have a lot of interest in Toronto 2. Toronto 3 it's one of those lines like Domi, Pacioretty, and Robertson. I could see that working out pretty well, actually. Robertson and Pacioretty, both shooters. Domi is a really good playmaker. When you're in the third line, you're not going to have to worry about much top line competition or anything like that. So it's a line that I can see working out well. The problem is like I actually do like that Pittsburgh third line, like we mentioned in the last show. Like Puljujarvi and Eller have looked pretty good with with McGroarty there. Like I do think if you're making a super expensive Edmonton, New Jersey, something like that stack, I do think, like a Domi Pacioretty 2-man or something like that. I think that's definitely in play. It's Toronto one that I like best by a mile in this game. Like it's not particularly close. I think Pittsburgh one is in play. I think it would be more if I was 20 maxing. Like I would probably have 1 or 2 Pittsburgh because this Toronto penalty kill still isn't good. They have not looked that good to start the season. They were a bottom 10 penalty kill last year. Not that the Pittsburgh power play is anything special, but it's like if there's a time when the Pittsburgh power play can come through, this is probably one of those situations. I just agree with you. I just agree with you that there are other spots in that price range that I'd rather go to today. Pittsburgh one is definitely playable. It's the only line on the Pittsburgh side I like. So I think it's just both top lines for me in this game. Maybe Toronto 3 if you're 150 maxing or something like that, and you're putting in, Edmonton, New Jersey, Colorado, that type of thing. But other than that, it's either top line. Toronto by a mile.
Yeah, agreed. Before I move on, got a $10 super chat from Grade A Flicks at a wedding. I had to stop by to say what's up. That I almost had Soderblom season correct, but was a fun slate last night. Good luck to all playing tonight. Time for drink number 5, Arden from Yonkers. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? It is Saturday in Yonkers at a wedding, so I'm sure you're going to get rowdy. Have a great day. Soderblom still worked out the overtime loss. It was still, he didn't kill you. So unless you're on FanDuel, you might be on FanDuel. But if you are, very close to being correct there.
Yeah, really close to that shutout. Kind of sucks. But yeah, have fun at the wedding. Thanks for checking in. As we say, enjoy responsibly, even though at a wedding that can be kind of tough. So, and who am I to tell you what to do anyway? But thanks for the super chat. Have a good Saturday, and cheers. We'll talk to you at the next show.
For sure. T-Bird says he says he has on FanDuel. Appreciate you guys covering 12 games on a Saturday. That's what we do. If the contests are good enough, we'll be here. We will be here. Ottawa Senators 3.3 total heading into Montreal. The Canadiens have a 2.8. This game's a little contentious in our Discord. We have some Sens fans. We have some Habs fans. Haven't seen a Canadian team win the World Cup since the Jurassic period, but still plenty of time to argue about it. Brady Tkachuk, Timmy Stützle, Claude Giroux on the top line. Drake Batherson, Josh Norris, Noah Gregor. The Mountain into the top 6. Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Kirby Doc, Newhook, Joel Armia. Ridley Greig down on like the 4th line because we can't have fun. We can't have nice things in Ottawa. Josh Norris still in the top 6 for some ungodly reason. Anyway, I like the Sens top line here. Stützle, Tkachuk, Giroux. Stützle and Tkachuk on the same power play unit. Stützle had a couple I think he had at least one power play goal the other night. Like, when this line is rolling, and we've seen it roll a few seasons ago, they're in the 20,000s. This is another one of those lines that's underpriced. The pricing's very soft right now. But again, like, they're still coming in with positive leverage. I know they're on the road, but they do have a 3.3 road total, which is tied for the highest on the night with Nashville. Montreal's penalty kill is not good. Defensively, they're still not great. I'm in on Ottawa 1. Ottawa 2, as long as Josh Norris is the center, I have no interest in a full stack. I think Norris, adding him into a power play stack is fine. Adding in Batherton to a power play stack is fine. but I'm not full stacking that line as long as Josh Norris is in the center position there. I think Pinto, Perron, Amadio is fine as a filler. There's just, and we'll get to some of the later games, there's some really cheap lines in good spots as well. I think taking one or two of those guys in a power play stack is fine. On the Montreal side, let's not pretend Ottawa has fixed their defensive problems. They haven't. Linus Ullmark played good the other night. He is a good goalie, but there's still some defensive issues on that end of the ice. I do like Montreal 1 here again. They're fully correlated. Stützle, Tkachuk, Giroux, they're decent defensively, but nothing that you're really, really worried about. You get some positive leverage. They're 16-7. They're fully correlated. I'm fine with them. You want to take Kirby Dach one off on the second line, that's fine. You want to do like a Dach Armia, Dach Newhook for cheap 2-man, I'm fine with that as well. There is a lot to like in this game. There is some stuff I'm considering in 1 to 3. Will I get there? Not sure, but it's at least in consideration.
Yeah. I think this is the third time we've had Montreal on the show, and we've kept saying that the Montreal top line, when they got assembled, Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, the difference was offensively. It wasn't defensively. It wasn't a very good defensive line. They have been getting just ran out of the rink to start this season. Now, it was a couple of tougher games like Toronto and Boston. You expect those two teams to be amongst the top 5 or 6 teams in the Eastern Conference, so they're not quite Ottawa quality. But in the 2 games, the Montreal top line lost the shot battle at 5-on-5, 21-4. They gave up 11 high danger chances and got 1 themselves. Like it's not like they've looked bad. They've looked like a third line. They are better than what they've showed. It is just the way that they've looked. Like they moved Slavkovsky off the top line in the last game. And I think that's something that is definitely on, like if Ottawa's up 1 or 2-0 in the second period, I think it's definitely on the table for that to happen again. It's one of the things that worries me about the Habs here. So I do like the Ottawa side better here. And a lot of it is that top stack percentage. Like you mentioned it, 9% top 2 stack for Tkachuk, Stützle, Giroux, 5.5% ownership. That is pretty good leverage for a top line that is playing what should be one of the 5 worst defensive teams in the league. And, Montreal had their discipline problems last year, and they've given up 9 power plays in the first 2 games to start this season. I really do like Ottawa 1 here quite a bit. If you want to make it more of a power play stack, I think that's definitely in play. Like take off Giroux. Hate to say it, but I think you can put on Josh Norris. Like the reason you can do that is power play correlation and the fact that they're going to play Norris 17, 18 minutes because they just keep doing that for some reason. So I think you can do that, but Ottawa 1 is the line that I like best in this game. It's the only stack on the Ottawa side that I kind of really like. The Montreal side, I'm not overly keen in. Like I think Montreal 1 is in play, but I'm going to be honest, at that price range, I think I would rather go play Pittsburgh and play Beauvillier, Crosby, and Rust at almost no ownership at the same price. Ottawa did look good in their first game against Florida. It's 1 game. You're not going to draw anything away from it. But we always say how they played like the stupidest team in the NHL. They didn't look like that in the first game. So if they can keep that up, they're going to be a lot better defensively than they've been in recent seasons. We'll see if they can actually do that. I think on the Montreal side, I think one off Cole Caulfield is certainly always in play. Kirby Dach is getting good ice time, so you can do that. But it's the Ottawa side that I like best in this game by quite a bit, and it's Ottawa 1 that I'm really, really focusing on.
Yep, I do really like Ottawa 1 as well. WWE Fan says it's their discount code to sign up for NHL content. If you click the link in the chat and you go to the checkout, shoot me a DM. If you're on Twitter, at JRH002, I can get you a discount code. If you're not on Twitter, if you're on Discord, I'm on there as well. Let me know in the chat if you're not on either of them, and then I can figure out a way to get you a discount code, but I can get you 15% off your first week or your first month. All you got to do is click the link in the chat. Let's move on to the next one here. Nashville Predators with a 3.3 total heading into Detroit. The Red Wings have a 3.1 total. We were excited about the Red Wings the other night. That ended very quickly. Now they're just doing more idiotic things. The top line is now Larkin, Kane, DeBrincat. Second line of Lucas Raymond, Vladimir Tarasenko, JT Compher. I almost look at that as a compliment to Lucas Raymond. It's like, please go down to this line to stabilize them. The problem is, like, you put Kane up onto that top line. Like, Kane's fine on the power play, don't get me wrong, but after watching him over the past few seasons, he's not the best skater anymore. He does have history with DeBrincat, obviously. I think that line will be fine, but going into Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist, not the most ideal matchup in the history of hockey. It's not very good. I don't have a ton of interest in Detroit here, despite the 3.1 total. I don't really have faith that these lines are going to stick together anyway. They are fully correlated, so at worst, oh wait, no, DeBrincat's on the second unit, right?
Yeah.
I swear Blasill's still coaching this team. Who is it? Ladonde? Who knows? Who cares?
Derek Lalonde.
Yeah, there we go. I much prefer Raymond on the top line with DeBrincat, and Larkin with Kane there kind of downgrades me a little bit. They still have a pretty good top two stack percentage, but my interest here is on the Nashville side. They're not getting much ownership here, and Detroit is awful defensively. They gave up like 19 goals to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh couldn't hit the ocean with a beach ball on a yacht. So I don't know. If there's any time to dust off the new toys of Stamkos, Marchessault, Sissons, like, you can, but my interest is the top line here. Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist. If you want to take Nyquist off and put Marchessault or Stamkos on, I think that is a very viable option here, because Nyquist is on the second unit now, Stamkos, Marchessault on the top unit. You even can go like three wings and go Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault, and get a little bit unique on the slate. Not that that's an issue, but I do really like the Nashville top six here tonight. Pay up for Josi. Seems like a pretty good option. We'll talk about defensemen at the end, but yes, I do really like Roman Josi tonight. And no, Jake is not holding a gun to my head off the screen. I said that under my own power. So I'm very much in on the Nashville top six. A little bit mum on Detroit. Wish Lucas Raymond was on the top line.
Like, honestly, for me, swapping Raymond for Kane feels a little bit like shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic. Like, it just doesn't really do anything. I think they're similar enough players that it doesn't change a whole lot. Maybe it makes the second line a little bit better defensively. Maybe it makes the top line a little bit worse defensively. That's about it. Detroit has a lineup that they have. They're stuck with it. I don't have any interest in stacking Detroit here tonight. For me, it's one-offs. Like, I think DeBrincat is perfectly fine as a one-off, 5,900. It sucks he's on power play too with Ben Sherrod.
Benny.
But he's going to get his ice time just because this is a top-heavy team that needs to play its top players. So, like, I think like a DeBrincat one-off is perfectly fine. Certainly Lucas Raymond, 4,600 as a one-off is perfectly fine. I'm not full stacking anything from Detroit. It's the Nashville side that I have more interest in. I don't know if people saw this the other night when Nashville lost against Dallas, but Stamkos played like 23 minutes and Jonathan Marchessault had like 21 or 22. Like, they were the top line. It wasn't the Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist line. I don't know if that stays consistent, but my worry about that second line in DFS coming into the season was that they would play the bottom six fairly regularly and Marchessault, Stamkos would play like 16 to 17 minutes. It certainly seems like the plan is to play them 18, 19, maybe as high as 20 minutes with some regularity. So I don't mind that Stamkos Marchessault line. You know, they both play the power play, the Detroit penalty kill, not going to be very good. I do like either of the top two Nashville lines. There's not a whole lot, I think, really separating them because you get two guys from the power play on both lines. You know, right now I would lean Stamkos Marchessault on the second line from Nashville, but I do think both Nashville lines are in play, and I'd rather play Nash. Like, I don't have any faith that Detroit will be good defensively this season. I think it's very plausible that Nashville is at least average. So, like, that's kind of the way that I'm looking at it. So for me, it's picking from the Nashville side. Whether you want to go for the first or second line, I don't think it really makes a huge difference. They rate extremely close for me, given the ice time. So I would lean Nashville too, Stamkos Marchessault right now, but I think they're just both very fine, very much in play.
Yeah, I mean, and that second line is going to probably go out against Confer and Tarasenko. So, like, even though Stamkos has his issues 5-on-5, nothing can cure those issues like some Confer and Tarasenko, two of the biggest black holes defensively in the NHL. Utah, them Utes, the Soakers, going into Madison Square Garden. The Rangers have a 3.5 total. Like 3.5 total, and the Rangers aren't getting a ton of ownership here. Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere coming in with almost a 10% top two stack, 5.2% projected ownership. Kreider, Zibanejad, Riley Smith, 3.2% projected ownership. Filipino, Capo Caco, they're negatively leveraged, but they're 8,500. You know what I mean? And Hedl and Caco look good together the other night. And they're going to get bottom six matchups of Utah. So, like, I'm not saying let's lock in some Filipino and Capo Caco, but if you are going for expensive Colorado, you are power play stacking, you know, Edmonton or something like that. I think a Hedl Caco two-man are completely fine. I do, again, really like the Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere line. I mean, you know, I am wearing a Rangers hoodie. I'm obviously a Rangers fan. I don't really want to sound too homerish here, but they are a very, very good offensive line, 5-on-5. And on the power play, you get two of the three guys. I think, you know, Zibanejad is going to have a bounce back season. It's not like his underlying metrics were poor. It was pretty much shooting percentage driven. Riley Smith is, how would I compare Riley Smith? Because last year they had, you know, Blake Wheeler, they had Roslovic up there, they had Capo Caco. Riley Smith is a better offensive player than Capo Caco, and he's much better defensively than Jack Roslovic. He's somewhere in the middle. It's exactly what that line needs. I think Kreider, Zibanejad, Smith is in play. Let's not forget, like, Utah gave up 11 high danger chances to the Hawks. The Hawks. The Rangers are a much better team than the Hawks. I like the Rangers top six. That third line is good for fillers. On the Utah side, in single entry, like outside of like a one-off Dylan Genther, maybe a Sergachev, something like that, a Dursey, you know, I don't have a ton of interest in stacking. You making 150 and Utah 1 happens to get into that mix. Yeah, I'm fine with it. It's 16-7. They're fully correlated. The way to get at the Rangers and Shesterkin is on the penalty kill. So I'm completely fine with that, but this is a Rangers game for me.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of interest in Utah. One, they seem to be spreading out the ice time a little bit, and that includes an Islanders game where it was pretty back and forth going right into overtime. So if anything on the Utah side, it would be the Keller line, perfectly correlated. Again, you mentioned the penalty kill. Like, I think that's kind of one spot where the Rangers can be had, but not a lot of interest in Utah on the Rangers side. What I noticed in that game against Pittsburgh, I mean, it did get out of hand eventually, but they weren't using Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere very much against the top six and the top line, especially. Like, there was a lot versus the depth, and like not a lot to worry about on the defensive side from the Utah second and third lines. I think this is a game where I agree with you on Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere. You know, obviously they were dominant last year. They're not getting that much ownership. Their top two stack percentage is about double their ownership, a little under, but pretty close. They played to a really high pace against Pittsburgh, which is a surprise when you see the final score. This is kind of the issue that I'm running into with the Rangers, though. And, obviously in 150 or whatever, you're going to play them 3 max. I think they're in consideration, obviously. It's just, I think there are other lines in that price range. Like we'll talk about Colorado later. I'd probably rather just choke the ownership a little bit on Colorado. Mentioned how much I really like Toronto's top line earlier. I do like Ottawa's top line better as well. I just think there are other lines in that price range that I'm specifically targeting. But if I'm playing anything out of this game, it's certainly the Trocheck, Lafreniere, and Panarin line.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, you definitely can play him in single entry. There's just so many options that, like, if you land on them and you say, hey, is this fine for single entry? I'm going to tell you, yeah. Like, am I going to play the Rangers in single entry tonight? I don't think so, but they're on the list. The list is long to cut down here tonight. So, if you get there, it's completely acceptable. Let's talk about the other team. They're not really in New York. They're across the river. New Jersey Devils with a 3.2 total. Heading into Washington, the Capitals have a 2.8 total. This is the first game of the season for the Washington Capitals. I mean, this is the Devils, 37th game of the season? And this is the Capitals' first, something like that. I think this is their 5th game, right? The Devils' 5th game of the season?
I think it's 4th. 2 in Europe against Toronto, and then this one.
Okay, yeah, but even so, the schedule is so wonky. Washington going with Ovechkin, Strome, Mangiapane, Wilson, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Connor McMichael. The bottom 6 doesn't particularly matter. Hughes, Bratt, Meyer, Heischer, Mercer, Tatar. Listen, like, the Devils' top line, they're $22,000. I think that's the most expensive on the board. Maybe Colorado's a little bit higher.
No, Edmonton's a little bit more expensive.
Yeah. But, like, there's so many cheap lines that are playable here tonight. Paying up for them is fine. They have a 16.7% top 2 stack percentage. They're coming in under 4% projected. You want to play them in single entry. Yippee-ki-yay in MME. Not hard to get over the field there if that's if that's what you want to do. Perfectly fine with that. Heischer, Mercer, Tatar. Again, there's tons of lines in that 11 to 13, 5, 14,000 range that are playable. If Heischer, that line gets into your MME mix in your optimizer, you don't have to take them out. I'd leave them. Devils top line is my preferred line. The Washington side is where it gets, I don't want to say interesting. I want to say, like, why are they so cheap that we have to consider playing them? I think that's where it is. The one thing I will say is I'm a Mangiapane guy. I know you are too. Ovechkin's down to 5,900. Ovechkin, Strome, Mangiapane, 13,500. Like, you can say what you want about Alex Ovechkin, and he looked a little lackadaisical last year at 5-on-5, but at 5,900 and his scoring ability with Strome, his best numbers are with Strome. You throw Mangiapane into the mix. I like that line at 13.5. They're coming in a little bit negative average, but not to the point where you're going to cry about it. So I'm in on Washington 1. Washington's second line is a little bit interesting because Washington loves Pierre-Luc Dubois so much that they bought cap friendly, so everyone on the planet can forget about that contract. But like, they're gonna play him with that contract. Tom Wilson's on power play 1 with him, so like, you can just add in the thing with Ovechkin. He's gonna play all 2 minutes on the power play. Devils have a pretty good penalty kill, so it's not the best power play spot. You can do what you want. You can do Strome, Ovechkin, Wilson, Strome, Ovechkin, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Tom Wilson, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Ovechkin. You know what I mean? I do like Washington 1 as a stack overall. I think you can pick and choose some Washington 2 guys and put them with Ovechkin. It's just so cheap. It fits with the expensive stuff. I don't particularly love them, but at those prices, and you just got to consider them.
Yeah. For me on the New Jersey side, it's New Jersey won or bust. My personal projections numbers have them as a top 3 line here tonight. The Top Stacks tool has them as a top 3 line here tonight, next to Colorado and Edmonton. So Washington last year, they weren't a bad defensive team, but I think the kindest thing you could say about them is that they were average, and they also got really, really good goaltending from Charlie Lindgren. That kind of, they were by goal differential and things like that. This was the worst playoff team in a quarter century. So I don't think that the changes are going to change a whole lot defensively. So I really do like New Jersey one. They're one of my favorite stacks on the slate. It's just that there are, do you play them, or do you play Edmonton at home to Chicago, or do you play Colorado and choke the ownership? Like, there are decisions to be made, but I do have that New Jersey top line as a top 3 line. On the Washington side, I did write up the Washington top line in the picks article today, free to read over at Stokastic.com. And what I did write about was Andrew Mangiapane, mostly in the section on the Caps, because he is, when he's at his best, and like, let's be honest, he wasn't very good last year. This is a guy who is kind of a dual threat guy. Like, I know he doesn't necessarily rack up assists, but this is a guy who is a decent playmaker. This is a guy who is a good finisher. This is a guy who is very good in transition when he's at his best. And yeah, he had a bad year last year, but he's still 27, 28 years old. Like, this isn't like a 34-year-old or something like that, right? So I think Mangiapane can help. You talked about Strome and Ovechkin, how Ovechkin has his best numbers with Strome, and he does. This is a line priced in that price range at $13,500, where you can play them with Toronto, you can play them with Ottawa, those types of things. You can play them with Colorado. So I do like Washington one. I think Washington 2 is certainly in play. Pierre-Luc Dubois and Tom Wilson. Like, I looked at how Strome and Tom Wilson did last year. They were surprisingly pretty good together. Lost my spot here for a second. 14.9 high danger chances for, 10.2 against, with Strome and Wilson on the ice. I think Strome and Pierre-Luc Dubois are fairly similar centers. So I do think that line can do well. I would probably take McMichael off and put Ovechkin on, because he's going to play 18, 19 minutes, including if there's an empty net situation at the end, including both halves of the power play and all that. I would definitely have Ovechkin in my lineup. I think both Washington top lines are fine. I prefer the Strome, Mangiapane, Ovechkin line, but it is the New Jersey line that I like best in this game, and it's one of my favorite lines on the entire slate.
Yeah, like the Devils line, whenever they play, they're always in play for me. It's just like, it's the conundrum with their price compared to who else is on the slate, and it's just like, what am I going to do tonight? I don't know, and that's what we're talking about it. New York Islanders with a 2.7 total heading into Dallas. The Stars have a 3.4 total. The Stars look like a wagon. I know it's been one game, but like, Stankoven looked ridiculously good. Wyatt Johnston looked ridiculously good. The one thing that you'll note, and you'll have the exact times because you're Cliffy and you're always very prepared, Wyatt Johnston played like 3 more minutes at even strength than almost any other forward. They just played him way more. You want to go back to that Wyatt Johnston-Ben line? 12-9. You want to leave Dodonov off? That's fine. Islanders do struggle on the PK. Is Sorokin back tonight, or is it Varlamov? I didn't see them.
It's Varlamov.
Yeah. I mean, he's good, but he's not Sorokin. I'm fine going back to that line. You want to go back to that top line? I think that's fine. They have some positive leverage. Like, yeah, they'll go up against Barzal, Horvat, Duclair, but like, okay, sweet. They're 16-1. The issue again is the ice time. Dallas spreads out their ice time besides Wyatt Johnston. So like, at that point, it's like, do I want to get the third line and third line matchups with Wyatt Johnston never leaving the ice, and you get Jamie Benn on the top power play as well? I do like that top line, and they're priced for their minutes, right? 16,100. Stankoven looked great up there. I'm fine with the Dallas one line. I'm fine with the Wyatt Johnston line. On the Islanders side, it would be the Islanders top line, but again, like I'm not super high on the Islanders here tonight. If they get into your crunches or whatever optimizer you use, and they're fine there. I don't think I'm going to consider them in 1 to 3. They are in that price range where there are a ton of lines. I'd rather play Washington. I'd rather play some other guys, but I think they're okay, and I think they're more of an MME play.
Yeah, just quickly on the Islanders. In that game against Utah the other night, now it did go to overtime, but Barzal, Horvat, and Duclair were, I think it was 1, 2, and 4 in ice time on the team. And Barzal played like 23 minutes. Horvat was around 20 and Duclair was around 19. So, if it was just a regular 60-minute game, it would have been like 22, 19, and 18. Like they got a ton of ice time. That Maxim Siplikov got a lot of ice time because he was on the top power play unit. 14,700, perfectly correlated. It is a bad matchup, but there's not a lot of ownership on them. I think they're going to get a ton of ice time. I think there is merit to playing that Islanders line. I agree. I think I would probably just rather go play Washington instead. On the Dallas side, I wrote up Wyatt Johnson in the picks article. 335 more in the season opener form than the next closest Dallas forward. Last year in the playoffs, what I mentioned in the picks article was he had nearly a full minute more than the next highest forward, which was Jason Robertson, and nearly 3 more minutes per game than the next closest forward. Wyatt Johnson is now their number 1 forward. He's going to play 19 to 20 minutes. That's kind of like Jamie Benn played 17 and a half minutes in the other game. Like that's kind of why that Dallas line is in play, is because Johnston and Ben probably could be amongst the top 4 in ice time amongst their forwards. So Johnston, Ben, Dadonov definitely in play if you need a filler stack. I do like Robertson, Hintz, Stankoven. I went back and watched parts of that Dallas-Nashville game the other night. I didn't get to catch it live. I was watching something else. Logan Stankoven, I wrote about him last year at a couple different spots. He's just, not only is he just super skilled, but he's very, very smart. Like he knows how to use those skills to pull the opposition out of the way, to kind of hide what their plays are going to be 2 or 3 touches down the road. Like it's just crazy how smart he is. And coming in with positive leverage on the top stacks tool, I really, really like the Robertson, Hintz, Stankoven line. 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. I think they're going to be really good together offensively at 5-on-5. The Islanders penalty kill, Kel Surprise looked like dog shit in the first game. It looked bad last year, no matter the coach. This could be a bottom 5 penalty kill again this season. So I really like Robertson, Hintz, and Stankoven. But I think Johnston, Ben, and Dadonov are certainly in play. I'm going to be honest, I'd probably just take off Dadonov and add on like Robertson and make it a full power play stack or something.
Yeah. If my internet gets a little wonky, my neighbor has a 125-pound golden doodle, and she just jumped onto my deck and is doing the worm. So if my internet goes in and out, that is most likely the reason. What's up, Riley? Seattle Kraken with a 2.6 total heading into Minnesota. The Wild have a 3 total. If there was a game on the slate that I wish wasn't on it, it would be this one. I am not thrilled about this game. I'm almost never thrilled about Seattle games. You throw Minnesota into the mix, and I'd rather watch paint dry. I think, of the sides, it would be Minnesota, and I hope Joey Decord is starting tonight. If Grubauer is starting, I would have more interest in Minnesota. I do like Joey Decord. It would be – what just happened? There we go. It would be the Joel Eriksson Ek Boldy line for me. Like if you want to one-off Kaprizov, that's always in play. I just take the cheaper line here. They get heavy minutes. Again, not super thrilled about it, but on the Seattle side, I don't think I'd stack anything. It would probably just be some one-offs. Actually, that's not true. I would probably, if Bjorkstrand, Beniers, Tolvanen got into my crunches or whatever optimizer at you had 3% of them or whatever in 150 lineups, I'd leave that. You want to one-off McCann, that's fine. I think Shane Wright looked good in the home opener. But like, this is a huge slate. If this was a 4 or 5 game slate, I think there would be more merit to Seattle here. I just don't particularly love this game.
I don't have any interest in anything in any forwards in this game, like at all. I just don't. None of them grade out well for me. Top stacks tool, there's no line in this game at 4% or higher. If you want to stack, it would be the Minnesota side because they are at home. They're they're going to get minutes. Eriksson, Boldy, Kaprizov, those guys are going to get minutes. I just honestly, we can move along. I don't have any interest in this game at all.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page. I decided to name some players just for shits and giggles. Columbus Blue Jackets with a 2.5 total heading into Colorado. The McKinnons have a 4.1 total. Johnny Drouin is out. This team is in shambles offensively, or like they still have McKinnon and Rantanen, and that's kind of all you really need. On the top line with them is Nikolai Kovalenko. He's min price. They're still over 20,000. This is the chalk spot of the night. They're 28.7% top 2 stack, 25.6% projected ownership. It's the Blue Jackets. So like, obviously now the question is what do you do here? Right. It's, if you're spending up in single entry, you're really choosing right between Colorado 1, Edmonton 1, New Jersey 1, Toronto 1. Honestly, I think there's so much merit to going in Colorado 1 here at that ownership. You don't even have to play Kovalenko. You could just play McKinnon and Rantanen and call it a day. Blue Jackets are probably the worst team in the NHL. As long as McKinnon and Rantanen are together, they're on this team with Landeskog, with Nichushkin, with Lehkonen, with Drouin, with those guys out, they're going to play upwards of 20 minutes, unless the game is like 8-0. And if the game is 8-0, they did some damage. You want to leave Kovalenko off, add in Casey Middlestat, make it super expensive power play stack. Go for it. Is Kovalenko on the top power play unit?
No, it's Middlestat and Ross Colton.
Yeah. So like, you want to leave Kovalenko in. Like, they would not move Kovalenko up there. Like Cliffy said, like they would have went out and signed some guys even before Drouin got hurt if they didn't believe in Kovalenko. You want to leave him in, he's min priced for, to bring down the cost of your lineup. Sure, you can leave him. You want to add in Ross Colton, you want to add in Casey Middlestat, be my guest. It's McKinnon, Rantanen, or bust. Now on the Columbus side, like they gave up 8 goals in their first game. All these guys being out hurts them defensively. You have the next guy up, the next guy up, the next guy up, and eventually you have Nikolai Kovalenko on the top line. You know what I mean? It's not nothing against Nikolai Kovalenko, but it's like as you go down into the depth, there's a guy named Ivan on the roster. It sounds like the bodyguards from Triple X. Everyone's named Ivan. But like, I just wish Columbus loaded a power play unit, whatever that would look like. I don't know. I'm fine with the one-off Marchenko. I'm fine with the one-off Kent Johnson. I'm fine with Fantilli and Van Riemsdyk. I'm not saying go out and play them in your single entry. But if you need some cheap guys in a spot that looks a little bit better than it is on paper, I'm fine with it. But really, it's McKinnon and Rantanen that I'm focusing on in this game.
Yeah, like we don't have to sit here and pretend that Colorado is a good defensive team, right? Last year they were 17th by goals against per minute. They were worse than Washington. To just kind of put that into context, they allowed more goals than Pittsburgh. They allowed more goals than Buffalo. They allowed more goals than Washington. Like and now they're missing literally their entire top four winger set. So I think Columbus is kind of in play here. It bothers me that There's heavy ownership, 6% on that top line, 1.3 top two stack. But Chinnikov got like 21 minutes in that game against Minnesota. Marchenko and Monahan heavy minutes as well. So, Chinnikov and Marchenko last year, 325 minutes together, 3.1 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. That's good. You know what I mean? Monahan, he's not a top line center, certainly not on anything you'd call like a playoff contender. He is right now. He's still a good playmaker, and he can probably pop 20 goals. Like, he's not nothing. I do like Marchenko, Chinnikov, and Monahan if you need some sort of cheap filler stack to play with Edmonton elsewhere, to play with New Jersey or something like that. I don't mind club. I watched a good chunk of that game against Minnesota. Went back and watched it because, again, I was watching a different game. They didn't look bad. It surprised me a little bit that they didn't look bad, but they didn't look bad. I don't mind Columbus one. Fantilli, Van Riemsdyk, LeBanc. Honestly, I think they might end up in a Winnipeg situation where they're listed as the second line, but they're actually going to be the third line. And Sillinger and Kent Johnson, especially because they're on the top power play unit, are going to end up playing more minutes. Kent Johnson played like 18 minutes in that game or something against Minnesota.
My man.
I don't think there's anything expensive enough where you have to do like a Coleman or a Cole Sillinger Johnson 2-man stack. I would probably just play the Marchenko, Chinnikov, or Monahan line or pass along. But I don't mind Columbus one as a filler. Colorado, I wrote about them in the picks article. Again, free to read over at Stokastic.com. Basically, all you have to decide is whether you want to choke on the ownership or not. This is the top line on the night. As if Columbus is as bad defensively as they were last year, Colorado's the top line on the night. They're going to play like screw 20 minutes. They're going to play like 22, 23 minutes, especially if the game is anywhere close. It's just, do you want to play them at 25%? Possibly higher in single entry, especially because Kovalenko is so cheap. Do you want to play them in single entry at like 30%, or do you want to go play single digit Edmonton, single digit New Jersey, like that type of thing? I'm not going to say what I'm going to do specifically because I don't I'm not going to give away my lineup. Colorado is in the mix. I do think there's certainly merit to not playing them at 30% or whatever on a 12-game slate. Like, I think it's one of those things like, if Nathan MacKinnon beats me on a 12-game slate, Nathan MacKinnon beats me on a 12-game slate. That's all there is to it. I just think at that ownership that there is merit to passing on them.
Yeah, there's merit to passing on them, but this slate is so big and the pricing's so soft that there's so many ways to get different if you're worrying about uniqueness, even in a high ownership. Like, there's just so many lines that can fit with them. So, like, yeah, it does sometimes feel bad playing a 25% owned line on a big slate, but like if you pair them with a lower owned, cheaper line in a good spot, like, you're going to be different. There's no right or wrong answer. It's all personal preference, really, what you want to do with the Avs here. And it's really just McKinnon and Rantanen on that roster. So it's like, yeah, I get the ownership because they're going to have to, do some heavy lifting. Let's talk about the Flyers. The Philadelphia Flyers, the 2.9 total. Heading into Calgary, the Flames have a 3.1 total. John Tortorella torched last night. Matvei Michkov, Sean Couturier, Travis Konechny didn't stay together. They played about 5 minutes together at 5-on-5. Frost, Michkov, and Konechny played about 5 minutes of 5-on-5. Sean Couturier played between Joel Farabee and Bobby Brink for 2.5 minutes. Jet Luchenko played between Farabee and Brink for 4 minutes. Jet Luchenko is out tonight. Noah Cates is in tonight. Good luck figuring out the lines if you want to play the Flyers. It did look like there were pairs that kind of stuck together. Michkov and Konechny stayed together. Forrester and Tippett stayed together. It's just the centers got rotated like musical chairs. So I think that would be the way you attack it. You go Michkov, Konechny, you go Tippett, you go Forrester. They scored a power play goal last night. It was not the top unit. I don't know how much interest I would have going back to the Flyers here from a stacking perspective. It is the Flames. It is Dustin Wolf in net, which is an upgrade from Dan Vladar. A 37-year-old Chihuahua would be an upgrade to Dan Vladar in net. I'm fine with Michkov and Konechny too, man. Fine with the Tippett one, but like full stacking, it just seems like you're fighting uphill on a massive slate when the best course is to make it easier on yourself. And so for me, it would be Michkov, Konechny, or even just a one-off Michkov, one-off Tippett, one-off Konechny, and you go about your day. On the Calgary side, yeah, this is a back-to-back on the road for the Flyers, but as Denny Green said they are who we thought they were. Flyers looked pretty good defensively yesterday. One off Kadri is fine. One off Zari. One off Manthis, something like that. Like, I just don't have a ton of interest in stacking this game.
Yeah, I mean, on the Flyers side, I guess one of the problems with stacking the Flyers is like if they do have really weird lines in warm up, like there's not a lot to pick from. It's basically you have to go and see what you can get from the San Jose Anaheim game probably. So I'm not particularly keen on stacking the Flyers on a slate this big. I agree. Like Michkov is still 3K and he played 18 and a half minutes last night. Like he's absolutely in play as a one-off. Konechny is going to lead this team in ice time, or the forwards anyway. He's definitely in play as a one-off. I agree with you. I think for Philly, it's more about one-offs, particularly if you need to save money and just play Michkov again. I think that's definitely in play. Like Michkov had, 18 and a half minutes with 4 shots, like more ice time than we thought he might get, which is a pretty good sign early on. On the Calgary side, I don't really have that much interest in the Flames. And listen, I don't do game probabilities. Like I don't run simulations of games and stuff like that. I just project individual players based on Vegas information. I don't know why Calgary's favored in this game. I think there's a very real chance that Calgary is a bottom 3 team in the Western Conference. Them, Chicago, San Jose, Anaheim. 3 of those 4 teams are going to be in the bottom 3. They're probably all going to be in the bottom 4. I don't think Calgary's a good team at all. Philly's probably going to be close to a playoff team, I think. Anyways, all this to say, I don't really want to play an over-owned Calgary across the board. I think the issue is that Sam Ersson started yesterday. I'm not going to lie, Sam Ersson probably saved them a couple goals there yesterday. He, especially in the first period, he played extremely well. We don't really have a sample on Fedotov and how he might play. I don't have a lot of faith in Fedotov, but we also don't really know how he'll fare in the NHL. We do know that the Flyers have generally been very good defensively, especially the penalty kill. On the Calgary side, like I think this is another instance. I think it's like Philly. I would rather just one-off guys. Like Kadri, Kuzmenko, and Hanzik are technically on the top line. I think in the first game, Kadri played like 21 minutes. Kuzmenko was like 15 to 16, and Hanzik was like 12 to 13. You know what I mean? Like it's just tough to stack when there's so much disparate ice time amongst the 3 players. So like I think one-off Kadri is certainly fine. Zari's on the top power play, so one-off Zari is fine. Going back to a one-off Mantha or something like that, I think is fine. But I'm going to be honest, there's just not a whole lot that I like for full stacks. But there are some cheap individual players that I think are fine salary savers.
Yeah, I mean, like if Matvei Michkov, he had the shot bonus until he got stat corrected like 10 minutes after the game. If you're going to give him almost 19 minutes at 3K, like a player of that caliber playing 19 minutes who's a shooter, he should be, I don't know, like when the pricing adjusts, he'll probably be in the mid 5s at some point, I would imagine.
Yeah, I was thinking, Victor Arvidsson, maybe a guy that could go 30-30 with near 2.5 shots, 3 shots per game. Like Arvidsson's 5,300. So
yeah, let's talk about the next game. Chicago Blackhawks with a 2.4 total heading into Edmonton. The Oilers have a 4 total. So you had Colorado with the 4.1. You have Edmonton with the 4. And it is actually kind of insane to think about, like, Colorado getting a 4.1 total with just McKinnon and Rantanen, basically. Now, the top line for Edmonton is 1,900 more than Colorado won, but they are coming in with about 5th the ownership. Connor McDavid had a straight-up 0 bagel, goose egg in the first game. I don't know how many times he's done that in his career. I would imagine you can count them on one hand. I am completely fine going back to Edmonton here. Chicago's back-to-back on the road. Now it is going to be Peter Mrazek in net. But, like, the Jets are the flow chart champions. Connor McDavid's probably going to be a little pissed. I did see that video that the NHL put out of him, like, cursing at his teammates during the Stanley Cup final. It's nice to see that he actually has some emotion. I honestly thought he was Ben Affleck after getting Dunkin' Donuts with the cigarette, just standing out there just going, because that's what he looks like all the time. Same expression. But anyway, I do really, really like Edmonton here. They're the most expensive line of the night at 22.5. Again, 22.5 might sound expensive, but when pricing adjusts and they have like a couple weeks where they just decimate teams, they'll be in like 25, 26,000 easily. I mean, Edmonton 1. You want to go to Edmonton 2? Like, it's fine. But again, I want McDavid in the stack. So, like, from personal preference, like, I have to have McDavid. If you're fine stacking Edmonton without McDavid, Edmonton 2 is fine. But this is Edmonton 1, Edmonton power play. On the Chicago side, Connor Bedard one-off's fine. Don't love it. But, like, really, I'm not interested in Chicago. I just wanted to say Connor Bedard.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in Chicago. I agree. If you want to one-off them, go right ahead. But no interest in playing them road back-to-back. I think it's third and fourth, 4 nights. 3rd and 5 maybe on the road. Edmonton 1 is why I don't really like. I mean, I like Colorado. Don't get me wrong, but Edmonton 1 is why I'm not as high on Colorado as other people might be. And they are more expensive, but they are perfectly correlated, and we have a sample of them succeeding extremely well, right? Like 4.6 goals per 60 minutes, 5-on-5. We don't know if Kovalenko is going to stay on the top line necessarily for Colorado. Colorado somehow finds himself down 1-0 at the end of the first period. Could be Ross Colton top line, could be Miles Wood top line. Like, they could try Callum Ritchie up there. Like, we just don't know. I feel pretty confident saying Edmonton's going to leave their top line together. And it's not like Chicago was that much better defensively than Columbus was last year. Like, Columbus was at 3.6 goals against per 60. Chicago was at 3.5. Like, you know what I mean? They're pretty close together for being horrific.
Dickinson line being ridiculous, and they're going to avoid that line. So
yeah, exactly. So I really do like Edmonton here. They're also a top 3 line for me on the night. I do like them more than Colorado just for the ownership purposes. Like you said, single-digit ownership, 5.3%. I want as many guys on the power play as I can get. For me, this is an Edmonton 1 or bust game.
Yeah, and just to clarify some stuff on the top stacks tools, you see them come in at 5 point whatever percent it was. I'm going to get an angry DM if that person plays Edmonton and they see Connor McDavid at 14%. Like, Connor McDavid is going to be in double digits. What the top stacks tools mean at 5.7%, that trio will be in 5.3% of the lineups. Like, the ownership of that 3-man stack will be 5.something%. So it's just, save the angry DMs, send the feed picks instead. Let's get to the daily deposit Frostback poll. That dude's tent has been pitched for this game for 30 hours now. The Anaheim Ducks with a 3.2 total heading into San Jose. The Sharks have a 2.9 total. Macklin Celebrini going on IR. He probably shouldn't have played in the opener. He was banged up, played anyway. Now he's going to be out for a week or whatever it is. As the Golden Doodle is doodling. Here's the thing, right? We talk about all these expensive lines, and you're like, oh, there's so many ways you can fit them. Like every line in this game fits. The most expensive line in this game is 13,300 Vetrano, Terry Strome, and I don't even think they're in the top 3 of my favorite lines in this game. Not that I love all the lines in this game. I'm just saying like they're the most expensive. With Celebrini out, the top line is going to be Mikael Granlund in between Toffoli and Eklund. I'm not a huge Granlund guy, but if you're going to give him 23 minutes, because they love playing him over 20 minutes with Toffoli and Eklund, I do really like that Sharks top line. The Ducks are atrocious defensively. They have a bad penalty kill. Everyone's like Frostback, super excited about playing the Ducks here tonight. Everyone's excited about playing the Ducks here tonight. We're Ducks slappies. Don't get us wrong. We love playing the Ducks. But I do really like that Sharks top line. On the Anaheim side, this is what I was telling you before the slate, right? If you're power play stacking Edmonton, how do you not just put Cutter Gauthier into your lineup? He's 2,800. Jackson Lacombe running the power play is 2,800. Cutter Gauthier in 3 games in the preseason had 30 shot attempts, 18 scoring chances, and 16 shots on goal. He's 2,800 on the top power play. The Sharks are bad. They're still bad. They're fun now, but they're bad. So, like, unfortunately, these guys all fit in with the really expensive guys. And you see single-digit ownership, but I would imagine it's going to creep up a little bit. There's a lot to like in terms of filler stuff. Edmonton won with that Ducks line. Edmonton won with the Sharks line. Colorado won with these lines. It's not going to be as sneaky as you think. If it fits too easy, it's not going to be sneaky. So just be aware of that. There's obviously ways to get different, but there is a lot to like in terms of filler lines in this game.
Yeah. I don't mind Eklund, Granlund, and Toffoli. Just because 1, they're going to play a lot of minutes. 2, they're probably going to be on the top power play together. Eklund, Granlund, and Zetterlund last year. I'm using Zetterlund in place of Toffoli because obviously he was elsewhere, but they were at 3.4 goals per 60 minutes. Now, they were terrible defensively, which is why we're definitely going to have to consider Anaheim here tonight, but they could score, and they are all in the power play. And Anaheim was last year by far the most penalized team in the NHL. Like they took 20% more penalties than any other team, which is frankly absurd. Like they took so many penalties that they skewed the league-wide penalty rate, right? Because most teams are between like 2.7 and 3.5 per game, and then they are over 4. So if they take a ton of penalties, I do like San Jose 1. Problem is Toffoli, Granlund, Eklund on DK's triple winger. But the nice thing is, and I did just check this to make sure that it works while you're on, you can fit them with like McKinnon, Rantanen, Middlestat from Colorado. You can do something like that. So, there are double center stacks. In Ottawa, you can do like a Kachuk, Norris, Stützle. With the Rangers, you can do like a Trocheck, Zibanejad, Kreider, or something like that. Like there are double
center always in play.
Sorry. Yeah, there are lots of double center stacks across the league that you can use. So I'm not super worried about them being triple winger. I'm not stacking anything else from San Jose. For me, it's either you play the top line or you just move along. The Anaheim side is a little bit more tricky, because I do think there are 3 lines that are technically in play, like Killorn, Karlsson, and Gauthier. Killorn and Karlsson created a fair bit last year. They just had trouble finishing. Like Leo Carlsson had an extremely high controlled zone entry rate, which means he was very, very good through the neutral zone offensively for Anaheim. They just couldn't finish the plays that he started. Now he was a rookie in his first year after the draft. Like maybe he missed some games for injury. They're resting him at times. Maybe he just kind of had to get his feet wet, and having Cutter Gauthier will help. They're coming in with a lot of ownership, but they do fit with, all that line, and the McTavish line fit with, your Edmontons and your New Jerseys and all that. McTavish, Zegras, and Fabry is kind of interesting. They are split up on the power play. I think McTavish is on the top, Zegras is on the second, and I don't think Fabry's on either of them. That kind of sucks. But McTavish and Zegras, when Zegras has been healthy, is absolute nitrous. You want to talk about trading chances? League average for high danger shots against per 60 minutes is at about 11.8. When they're together, they're at 15.14 and 17.6 against. Like, league average going both ways is something like 23.6. And these guys are over 33 per 60 minutes for and against. Like, it is the definition of trading chances. They are relatively cheap. It sucks that they have broken power play correlation, though. Vetrano, Terry, and Strome is kind of interesting because that's a line that at least has 3 proven NHLers on it. You know what I mean? Like, McTavish still hasn't really proved himself. Zegras is just coming back from injury. Carlson's in his second year. Gauthier's a rookie. But like Terry, Strome, and Vetrano have all been productive at different times of their career. None of them are that old. I don't mind that line. It sucks that they, every line has broken power play correlation, but they do have broken power play correlation. I think my favorite line is Vetrano, Terry, and Strome. They do have the top 2 stack percentage, but I do think all 3 lines are in play. I'm going to be honest. I think it's the Carlson, Gauthier, Killorn line that I like least, just because I think they're going to, especially Gauthier, is going to come in with very high ownership in a road matchup. I just think I'll take the lower ownership and go with the more proven players. But honestly, Anaheim, it feels weird to say, but Anaheim legitimately has 3 lines that are in play tonight. But to say all that, I do think the San Jose top line is my favorite line overall in this game.
That was our first nitrous reference of the year. It will not be our last.
No.
Yeah, like Vetrano's coming off a massive season.
37 goals or something like that.
On the Ducks.
Yeah.
They scored 39 all season. He had 37 of them.
Yeah.
That's not a true stat. But that it feels like it, though. That is 12 games. That's 12. Let's talk about some defensemen. Before we do, as always, if you want to sign up and support us directly, you can click the link in the chat. You can choose between weekly and monthly. We don't have Sims for hockey. We just don't. I mean, you can obviously sign up for other sports that have Sims, but if you want to do hockey, it is data only. And if you do want a code for 15% off weekly or monthly, you could just shoot me a DM. I can get you 15% off. Let's talk about defensemen here. At the top of the board, we have Cale Makar, Roman Josi, Adam Fox. Makar at 8,300, Josi at 7,800. I think both are very much in play. It is just whether you can fit them in your lineup. I think Makar, like we talk about McKinnon and Rantanen having to play 23, 24 minutes. Makar might play half an hour. You know what I mean? So like Josi played 29 minutes in his first game. I'm fine with both of them. Bouchard in a very good spot as well. Dougie Hamilton. Kenzie Weegar just doesn't leave the ice. There's a lot of options at the top range. Who you like in the mid range?
Yeah, I'll just say my top defenseman tonight is Bouchard, considering his price, and it's not particularly close. Bouchard played 25 minutes in that loss. He was just under 23 per game last year. If he's in between 24 and 25 minutes, he might lead the league for shots by a defenseman. So I really do like Bouchard. Josi Makar obviously in play. I also mentioned Mackenzie Weegar. He didn't get a ton of ice time in that game, which kind of worries me. I hope it's more just they were trying to get their other defensemen just kind of up to game speed rather than Weegar is going to play 22 to 23 minutes. But I think he's in line for in a good spot for shots and blocks. And, he plays the top power play. Philly does have a pretty good penalty kill, but Weegar still, I think he's the number 6 projected defenseman on Stochastic, so just fine. In the mid-price range, there are 2 mid-price guys that I think stand out more than the rest, and it's Jake Wallman and Jake Sanderson. Jake Sanderson, like both guys, I think played over 24 minutes in their season debut. Jake Wallman, obviously running the top power play unit. I went over how Anaheim was like by far the most penalized team in the league last year. It sucks the power play doesn't have Celebrini, but they didn't have him last year, and the power play was still like league average. So Wallman and Sanderson in the mid-price range I really like. I think Moritz Seider and Owen Power definitely in play as well. Tons of cheap guys to play. Jackson Lacombe, you mentioned running the top power play for Anaheim. Igor Zamula, we mentioned him yesterday on the show, getting over 20 minutes. He's min-price, got over 20 minutes, still min-price. He's going to play over 20 minutes for Philly. Kovacevic mid-price, also going to play over 20 minutes. Cody Ceci played like 24 in San Jose's debut. I think he's 2,800 if I'm not mistaken. He grades well for cheap as well. I mean, Jacob Chikrin, 3,500. I know he's, quote, second power play unit or whatever for Washington. I imagine they might end up splitting the ice time between him and Carlson. Chikrin at 3,500 is one of the top values on Stochastic projections here today. Pavel Mintyukov running the second power play for Anaheim. I think he might be Anaheim's best offensive defenseman right now. I hate to say it, but Ben Sherratt for Detroit, for some reason, he's running the second power play unit for the team, and he's probably going to end up second in ice time amongst their defensemen. So I guess Ben Sherratt is in play as well. And I'll mention Jake Middleton from Minnesota. Declan Chisholm still not playing for the Wild, so Middleton's looks like he's still in line to. They're going to play the top four defensemen heavily. So I think Middleton gets past 20 minutes again.
Yeah, that's a lot to choose from. Let's talk about goalies. I mean, there's a lot of cheap options that I think are playable tonight. At the top, I do like Igor. Surprise, surprise. I think Jake Ottinger's in play. I think Jacob Markstrom's in play. Spencer Knight, starting for Florida, is a bit of a wild card. I think he is more GPP only there. I think Dustin Wolf's in play against Philadelphia. And then down at the bottom here, I think Devin Levi's in play without Barkov. Florida's without Barkov. I think Joey Decord is in play. Connor Ingram against the Rangers. I think if I was spending down, my favorite would be Levi or Decord, though.
If I spend down, it's Levi's definitely in play, especially with Barkov and Kachuk out. Like Sam Montembeault, like Ottawa's big problem for a couple of years has been finishing their actual chances at 5-on-5. I think Montembeault could see a lot of shots again here tonight, not necessarily a lot of goals. If I'm paying up, like Anthony Stolarz, I wrote about him in the picks article today. His goal saved above expected is literally like Connor Hellebuck level over the last 5 years. It's just he's a backup goalie. I think Stolarz is just fine. Igor in play as well, and Jake Ottinger. But the top four for me, it's like if you want to pay down, probably Montembeault and Levi. If you want to pay up, I think it's Stolarz or Igor.
Yep. Looking at the schedule, looks like we'll be back on Tuesday. It's a split slate on Monday for some reason. Oh, yeah.
No, it's 3 afternoon games, 3 games at night on Monday. So we'll be back Tuesday.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll be back on Tuesday. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Woblak, Bleddy, Ram, a Jam, Jonathan, Audie, Marchessault.
Where's Frostback? You in here? Wave if you're in here. You think you know who I'm going? Wrong. William Eklund.
Wow, that's spicy.
Thank you. Keep it spicy. I meant to say Tyler Toffoli, but William Eklund came out of my mouth.
It happens.
Yeah, I knew he was gonna think I was gonna say Cutter Gauthier, but I bet his shot props. I'm just gonna go fade him because he's gonna be like 25%. But we'll be back on Tuesday. We'll see you then. Good luck tonight. Again, if you want to sign up, shoot me a DM. I can get you a promo code. Have a good night. See you on Tuesday.
Good luck tonight, everyone.